Hello, and welcome to the first of a few interviews with actually neurodivergent people who are not necessarily famous nor influencers or even really out and about, out and proud. These are folks who have trusted me to share my story and agreed to share some of theirs as well. And this is happening today with Kate Blenheim. And this is the first of a few interviews for Neurodiversity Celebration Week in March of 2025. So hello and welcome, Kate. So exciting today to have this and to try this out and to reach new people for free. And I just really appreciate you being here. So for those of you who don't know, because there's so many who don't know, my name is Jenine Lillian and my pronouns are Jenine, they, them. I'm a dual citizen of Canada and the United States of America, and I am 52, actually autistic and dyslexic, but I didn't know until a year ago. So my passions and projects include bird watching and talking to strangers as though they're my friends, because in my mind, they are my friends. I love walking and meal prep and self-care. I wanted to ask Kate to introduce herself and to share that similar information. So name and age and little label for the neurodiversity and passion projects.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so I'm Kate. I'm 22 and my pronouns are she, her. Currently going to university and studying communications and publishing, which is really great. I love books. I love reading. Fun fact, I got a Kobo for Christmas, and it's the best gift I've ever received. I've almost read 20 books so far this year.
Wow.
Um, and I love to knit. I love music, and I love cats.
Yay. Oh my gosh. And since we're talking about the neurodivergent mind,
Oh, right.
you
Of
are
course. I have ADHD.
awesome. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm so excited to talk with you today, Kate, and to just reach some folks and bust some myths and get in it. So, Neurodiversity Celebration Week really should be all the time. And so, we're going to do a little celebrating together. One of the things that I wanted to ask you today, Kate, is um, because of your lived experience and your diagnosis of ADHD, you have a very different perspective on day to day life that I have, and your academic study journey has, I'm sure, been impacted by that. But a lot of what we encounter is the negative messaging and the discomfort of others and the difficulty that we face being neurodivergent, navigating a neurotypical world. So I wanted to ask you to share with us today some of the positive things that come with this package deal of having a neurodivergent mind.
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is probably like the creativity. I find throughout my whole life, I've been quite the hobby hopper. So I'll go from one thing to the next because it's just fun to like learn a new thing. And especially whether like when I was in elementary school, I loved to make like little clay models.
Cool.
Um, quite an inexpensive hobby. I've recently gotten super into knitting and so just like learning something new and having something to do with my hands. Um, you know, making my own like patterns. There's so much that you can do, and I feel like even beyond like hobbies that can extend to um geez, just like the way I approach schoolwork too.
Yeah.
Um, I also find I'm pretty flexible. I try not to get too down on myself when um if I'm like writing a paper or something and I can tell I'm getting a little restless, I just, get up and find a completely new thing to do and try not to hyper focus and if I do, that's okay. But for a little bit, and I guess the last thing I'd say is maybe like problem solving. I think that's that's a huge strength because my mind's always going super fast.
Mhm.
So if something goes wrong, I'm just trying to think like, what can I do right now? How can I like
Oh, that's
improve this?
excellent.
How can I like help this person? What can I do to make this better? So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question,
Oh,
but
absolutely. And you also
okay.
threw in some really good stuff in the mix. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I love how you described both the compelling nature of and the satisfaction of doing some craft or physical component with the creativity of the mind, and then
Mhm,
kind of finding your own way in that. Like that's
mhm,
absolutely something that a lot of neurodivergent people have more lived experience with, because we have to navigate such strange circumstances,
mhm,
which to other people are just sort of the norms of
mhm,
society. And you mentioned the same type of thing again with, learning these skills that really support us are valuable and so important. And we may know these things because we've had to kind of figure them out,
mhm,
maybe even sooner, or try them out more often. And so, like, when you're saying, you're feeling like you've just been in it too long with the schoolwork, like finding something else completely different to do, so
mhm,
beautiful because it gives the mind a rest.
mhm,
Then, I don't know if this happens to you regularly, but I know for myself, when I'm frustrated or feeling stuck and I go do that other thing, usually for me, it has to do with like walking or getting some
mhm,
fresh air, or maybe even just washing some dishes by hand. For me, that's
mhm,
very restorative and calming. But
mhm.
I often have like oh, I could do this with it. Or, I have sort of those shower moments of
Yes.
a new way. It actually sort of unclogs my thinking.
Mhm,
And I think that that's such a wonderful thing that also, again, I couldn't have planned this better, Kate, because then
mhm.
it helps us be more confident and more like easily shifting, even though it
Yes.
feels weird. And maybe later we're like tired from it, or we go, oh,
Mhm,
that didn't really go how I planned, but it's okay. Like assessing what's going on in the moment and shifting to what's needed, being able to um, respond
mhm.
rather than react, right?
Yeah.
That's just incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. To
Thank
me,
you.
it's so helpful to hear these things too, because I go, oh, I do something similar. Like that makes so much sense.
Mhm,
Or sometimes I hear about like, oh man, that's something I never tried. I'm totally going to put that in my pocket and try it and see how it works for
mhm.
me. And one of the things that I find really just beautiful about my autistic mind is also something that can be of detriment to me. So I cannot ignore anything. Um, and you would think that that would be pretty unpleasant, and it can be honestly hellish in a crowded environment, trying to read at a in a public place or work
Mhm,
on my laptop at a coffee shop. My brain does not do that well.
mhm,
um, and I'm a librarian, and I learned at the same time that I got my autism spectrum disorder diagnosis that I'm also dyslexic. So it really explains a lot of the effortful process in these activities that I've expanded on and dove into, especially for my profession. But then, like, I would have peers or patrons say, oh, it's so great to just like read at the desk when it's like between a busy time. I'm like, no, I can't do that because I
mhm,
hear and smell and feel everything that's going on around me. And if you've ever been in a public place that has a lot of stuff going on, you know that like it's not a silent place.
mhm.
And so to me, it is very distracting. And at the same time, it's also like upon me. I don't know how better to describe it. But one of the great things that comes from not being able to ignore anything is that I notice stuff in like a safety situation, and or editing. I like errors jump out at me. Like Canva, for some bizarre reason, doesn't have a spell check inherent, and I see these flyers all the time that have transposed letters or something, and I'm just like, oh gosh, you guys should have asked me before you printed this. And recently I was at the local rec center, and I was walking laps above the hockey rink because it was really cold and windy and icy
Mhm,
outside. And I'm walking my laps, and it's like, I don't know, 8:30 in the morning. And at the end of the loop, I kept hearing water running. And we had a huge snowfall and ice melting, like, and I was like, that can't be good. And it was by the washrooms and this snack shack. And I thought maybe it's somebody in the washroom and they're doing the faucet, and it's going to stop. So the next time I came around, I was like, No, it definitely sounds like water running. And so I decided I'd go downstairs and tell somebody at the front desk. And they sort of looked at me like, I don't know that that's really a thing. And I was like, it's really a thing. Can you call the maintenance guy? Um, and it turns out that the water had been running in the sink in the snack shack since Saturday. And this was a Wednesday. And either no one noticed it or no one said anything.
Yeah.
And the maintenance guy was like, that's not good because it's nobody's been in there since Saturday. And I was like, can you check it out? Because like I really
Yeah.
think this is a thing. And sure enough, right? So I mean, I'm glad it wasn't like a safety issue, but like it's a waste of resources and it was an unpleasant thing, you know.
Yeah.
So these are ways in which I go like, oh, you know what? Good job. My brain is doing stuff that like I think it does serve us to have these things that in some settings can be challenges and you know can other people can say that we're difficult or that you know we're particular but that we have a lot of these inherent skills and talents and perspectives and the creativity piece you mentioned too. Like my whole life I've been very interested in learning different techniques and trying things on and you know some of them are easier or harder or I feel more skilled at, but just to try them out. Like it's so great that like arts and craft supplies have gotten so much more affordable now than they were a long time ago. And just to rediscover that play instead of I have to do this to be perfect at it. Like,
Yeah.
for example, this painting behind me, I made this
Beautiful.
painting. Thank you. I decided I didn't know how to paint, and I was very frustrated by I couldn't make it look how I thought it should look in my mind. And then I was like, I don't like painting with a brush. It's too, I don't know, it like fights back. So I
Yeah.
made this with my hands.
Awesome.
And it's just such a wonderful thing to me to be able to go, hey, look, I made this thing. Like this is a thing. And it's just in my house. And I made some other ones and I ended up doing a walk. Like it's just, you never know. But just for my own satisfaction. And like even now, because I have such a sort of hyper sensory awareness, I can remember how it felt to have the cool paint on my, you know, and like it's very therapeutic and it's very rejuvenating to have these experiences where I feel like I'm sort of playing or messing around, making a mess,
Yeah.
rather than having to be perfect. Because the perfectionism certainly sits on my shoulder all the time.
Yes.
You know about you?
Yes, 100%.
And I'm like, well, how about we just try to make a mess instead of try to make it perfect, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that we can really start to see a lot of these causes for celebration and gifts that we. I just appreciate you so much for sharing some of yours. Did you think of any others you wanted to add, just in case?
Um, I guess like I mentioned, my brain's going so fast all the time. That can be, like you kind of said in um uh your spiel right then.
Yes.
It can be a little overwhelming, like when you're in a public place, because I'm kind of the same. I find it really difficult to like do schoolwork in public because every time someone walks by me or I hear something that sounds funky, I'm like looking around and there's
Yep.
music playing and whatever. Um, but I find that like sometimes my brain going so fast can be overwhelming, but sometimes it's so much fun. It is so much fun
It is.
because, like you said, like if I'm doing a craft or a hobby, I just go wild. I'm like, oh,
That's
this could be a
awesome.
fun thing to do. Let's try it. Or if I'm writing a paper or something, I'm like, that could be a funny combination of words. Let's try it. I can edit it
Awesome.
later. And so I really appreciate that kind of that chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was actually just going to ask because you said you notice everything.
Yes.
I imagine that helps. I have one of my really good friends is super into birding as well. So I've
What percent?
I've yeah, so I've kind of gotten into it as well. I've gotten
Cool.
definitely a much greater appreciation for birds. Like we've gone to some sanctuaries and stuff together.
Oh, nice.
And I wonder if like that being able to notice everything helps with your birding.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. And it's actually how I started paying attention to birds because I would notice
Mhm.
some other people and I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. And everybody's like, I don't
Yeah.
know what you're talking about. Who cares? Is it, and the most wonderful thing that I get from birds is, first of all, I have to go outside, and
Yeah.
that's great, but sometimes I have to really push myself outside, right? So I have
Mhm.
an excuse. I have a
Yeah.
reason. I have some friends waiting for me, the
Mhm.
birdie community, and but the main thing I get from them is they are dealing with so much struggle,
Mhm.
and they have, even the largest birds are quite small and they
Mhm.
have very little to work with. And yet they are graceful and resilient and resourceful and persistent. And
Mhm.
like, I identify with that, right? Like,
Mhm.
on my hardest days and on my best days, I want to be able to work with what I've got and find a way. And, I don't have the same biological imperative that they have. And I certainly
Mhm.
have a whole lot of privilege, but I also have a whole lot of extra crap. And
Mhm.
it just gets very, simplified and just truly like it's very hard to
Mhm.
be a bird. And
Yeah.
at the same time, like it's just so profound to me to just observe them. And even the
Mhm.
ones that most people think are like, not really worth watching, like pigeons or crows or
Mhm.
starlings or sparrows or finches at coffee shops or whatever. It just makes me so happy to see birds doing their thing. And
Mhm.
to learn a new bird, to be able to teach somebody how to recognize a bird by their call or at certain
Mhm.
times of year to spot them, um, yeah, so that's been something I definitely cultivated a special interest in
Mhm.
a long
That's awesome.
time. Yeah, and now I totally see it as like, oh wow, this is a special interest, right? Like when it was
Mhm.
just a thing I did. Um, and one of the things too about the way that I engage with birds is that I love to read about I read like bird lit uh
Mhm.
and like, field guides and stuff like that. But I also just I don't carry any stuff. I don't have a scope or binoculars or a camera or anything. I just go and
Mhm.
then I try to remember some stuff if I see a new bird, and then I come home and I use the Merlin app
Mhm.
to identify it. But it's mostly like I just want to experience being out there and seeing this majestic thing happening or this heartbreaking thing. I mean, it's life. Um,
Yeah.
and I used to teach kids and teens online about birds, and it's
Mhm.
really wonderful to talk with young people about, like, they don't have all the kit and
Yeah.
they don't travel usually. And so just like enjoying just even in your own backyard, right?
Mhm.
So that's so lovely. Like, oh, let's come visit and we'll go for a bird walk. And
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to.
yeah, but you have some
Yeah.
wonderful sanctuaries nearby, and like
Yes.
it's just so, especially like the more wild places, I find them
Mhm.
to be really restorative and just
Mhm.
very encouraging for us as human beings.
Totally. And I think, yeah, just one last thing on that, but
Mm,
my friend and I, when we talk about birding, we talk about it like, yeah, it pushes you to get outside, which is great, and
yes.
really pay attention to what's around you.
Mhm.
And yeah, like pigeons, although very, you know, mundane, you could say, are like fantastic. Like if you're,
Yeah.
standing there waiting for the bus and you see a crow and you're like, oh, what are they doing? They got a stick in their mouth. Oh, they're trying to like pry open this container or whatever.
Yeah.
But one of the things we've talked about before is just the fact that birds aren't yours. Like
Yes.
you can't you just go out there and you experience it. You don't own anything. Like you said, you don't have to carry around binoculars or a camera or
Mhm.
whatever. You can just go out there and just give it a shot.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
great.
think I think that's awesome. Like you don't really need anything to do it and you don't own them. They're
Yeah.
just living their life.
And they're everywhere we are. That's the other
Yeah.
thing. Like everywhere on Earth, right? And I mean, there
Mhm.
are lots of other critters in the natural world, but there's nothing with the same level of drama and complexity and
Mhm.
societal, chatter. Like
Mhm.
it is definitely an encountering. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you for that, Kate. What an
Yeah.
unexpected joy. Yeah, I just really, birds teach me a lot and, encourage me to really play with and engage with the things that my mind does
Mhm.
that are, you know, very different than what a lot of people do, right? I'm not there with like a list and a book and the Latin name. Like I'm just like, okay, I'm here with,
Yeah.
you know, as a witness, right? And I
Yeah.
often feel like they are very witness to me, you know, like,
Yeah.
and I just really appreciate that. Like, hey,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
thanks for being here today. Thanks for being part of
Yeah.
the community, and you know,
Yeah.
sticking it out in the wild urban setting.
Hmm.
It's just that's just so lovely. I'm so glad you have a friend. Oh, that I wish we all have a friend that we could encounter birds with in this
I
simple way.
wholeheartedly agree. Yeah. Hmm.
Oh man, so awesome, so awesome. Okay, so I want to just yeah, thank you so much, Kate. I want to
Yeah.
ask you let's see. So you mentioned a few of the sort of like things that help you out, life hacks or things that are supportive to your ADHD mind. And I'm just wondering if you can think of any other sort of tricks or tips or like, oh man, if I didn't have this, I'd really be sunk types of personal sort of recommendations or things to try that you've really felt like, oh, that's if I don't do that, I'm going to have a hard week. Or, you
Yeah.
know, man, I wish everybody that gets an ADHD diagnosis learns about this or something. Is there anything kind of along those lines that you'd like to share?
100%. Yeah. I think for a long time, I kind of operated under the idea like, I can just like, I don't need all the extra, like, I don't need a clock sitting on my desk. I don't need, but like, there's certain things that like small things that inexpensive,
Mhm.
super helpful. Like, I just decided to put a clock on my desk one day. Insanely helpful because I can look over
Amazing.
and be like, okay, I've been sitting here for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe I should get up and go for a walk or like have a snack. So that's one of them. I'd also say uh, my phone is both like a really helpful thing and also kind of my worst enemy. But I love Google Calendar is a huge one because my
Totally.
memory is not great. And so having everything written down, everything put in there is super helpful. Even if they're like, maybe gonna happen plans, I put them in there so I don't forget. It's amazing. Another thing is this website app called Todoist,
Hmm.
and I use that for school and for like my personal life. And anytime I think of something that I have to do, I just add a task. I can add a
Nice.
date, I can add a tag, whatever, and it helps to break stuff down into like more realistic steps.
Oh,
So
awesome.
instead of just having a list where I'm like, okay, write this paper, instead I'll have that task and I'll say, okay, I want to start with maybe looking for my sources, and then I'll write the layout or whatever. So different stuffs like that to be like, okay, it's not all or nothing. I can
Mhm.
start in little like bite-sized pieces
Yes.
so that in the end, I'm not so exhausted from having to do it in a weekend, which I've done before, and it's fine,
Yeah.
but not ideal. Um, another huge one is having a watch on.
Yay.
A watch on is a huge one because then if I'm no matter what I'm doing, could be middle of the night, could be whatever, I can look down and because time blindness is a very real thing for me.
Yes.
And so I always have my watch so I can not lose track.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's like a check-in point, right?
yeah, and it's not my phone because if
Yes.
I check my phone for time and I see, oh, I got a text from my
Yes.
friend, like, huh, maybe I should read that, and then my
Yes.
whole course of whatever I was doing is thrown off.
Totally.
Um,
I totally understand this. And you like you're 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 saying so much stuff that I've heard other people like
yeah,
have challenges with. So it's just so great to hear about like some do this, like these
yeah,
people. I also have an analog clock on my work desk so that I can
yeah,
keep track of just kind of like, oh, okay, I'm here now and I have this much time left. And
yeah,
oh, I just love that so much that you're not necessarily using these tools or technologies to like kind of punish yourself or
no,
kick yourself. You're like, okay, just check. What the heck time is it? Like, should I get up or not?
yeah,
So helpful, just so helpful. For me, my main thing is unplugging as often as I can and getting off the screens, because
Hmm.
I'm older, and I'm thankful to have had so much time before the internet and the apps and the cell phone became a thing, because
Hmm.
that's really my sort of system reset default. And self-care and naps and food prep and just like making a ritual out of domestic tasks for me is just so like, oh yeah, okay. Um,
Hmm.
and having a very quiet and low lit, scent free,
Yeah.
drama free living and working environment is just so helpful for me. So those are some of the things that I do, and then engaging those creative pursuits and engaging those, curiosities, and just walking outside.
Yeah.
So we have just another minute or so, and I wanted to ask you, Kate, thank you so much for being here today. And this
Yeah.
is
Thank you.
brand new thing for me to be doing, and I'm just so glad to connect with you and give you a chance to share some of your experience. Wondering if you have any next steps you would like folks to take after hearing your interview today, or whenever it is that they hear it, like if they identify with your story or personal experience, just kind of maybe like words of encouragement, or just do this one thing or two things, to really elevate that positivity.
Yeah. I'd say be like be kind to yourself. I would say it can be very hard because it can be frustrating when all you want to do is like wash, do laundry, and you that's the one task you've had to do all weekend and you just haven't been able to get yourself to do it. Just be nice to yourself and maybe make a plan to do it a different day. Maybe that one task is going to be really, really difficult for you right now,
Yeah.
and that's totally fine because it's not the end of the world. Because you can wake up tomorrow and you can make your coffee or whatever, and you can throw your laundry and you can be like, hey, that wasn't so hard. And I
Yeah.
feel like having like punishing yourself in that moment is just so not productive. And
Yeah.
I still like find myself doing that for sure, but I try and remind myself that it's okay. It's fine. We just need to take a deep breath and it'll be okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I guess I'd maybe say if you know someone that's neurodiverse, or maybe, yeah, you don't exactly align with what I'm saying. Um, and yeah, if you know someone that's neurodiverse, like I appreciate all my friends who are so patient with me when I talk over them or like really switch subjects really fast or cannot stop talking or um talk their ear off about something that I'm super interested in for that week or whatever. And just also just being patient with me. I
Yeah.
really appreciate that a lot because it's like it's showing that it's totally okay. Like this is something we can live with,
Yeah.
this is something we can thrive with.
Yeah.
Um,
That's awesome.
and yeah, so
Oh, Kate, you're winning at life. And
thank
what you
you.
described about your friends being patient with you, like it's also that acceptance and celebration of the whole person,
Hmm.
right? Like there are very few people where I can really feel like I don't have to worry about that they might take what I said wrong, or,
Hmm.
like they know my intentions and they know me, and they know that all I want to do is just bring them closer,
Yeah.
and that you can't have that in every single person you interact with, but you can have it with a remarkable number of people.
Hmm.
The more we share these things and ask others, like, what are some things that your brain does, because we're all different no matter what.
Yeah.
And one thing for me too is just the self-care and the being kind to ourselves. Like I love how you're so much of what you're doing is just building this muscle of taking care of yourself and supporting yourself. And
Hmm.
I do this thing too where I go, okay, I have to do my taxes, and that's like one thing on the to-do list, right? Or it's its own thing. And then,
Yeah.
like you talked about, there's like 57 steps in that, and don't
Yeah.
figure it's not getting done. So one of the things I've started doing, and I don't necessarily write it down, but at the end of the day, I sort of mentally, or even just to myself, say it out loud, what I've done, like what I've completed that
Hmm.
day. And so, like, it could be anything. It could be like I did the laundry, I went for a walk, I checked on a friend, I, submitted this invoice, like whatever it is. It could be like super exciting or not exciting at all. And
Hmm.
then I just sort of go through and think about like, what else did I do today? Oh yeah, I made myself a nice lunch, whatever. And then, then I'm able to sort of let it go, but it's also a more positive type of rumination than the, oh man, this conversation is still, bothering
Yeah.
me. And I wish that didn't go that way, because there's a lot of that, right?
Mhm.
So I encourage, like, if you do a journal practice, I really encourage doing like a done list at
Mhm.
the end of the day, or even if there's like a weekend, or I don't know. Because our to-do lists are so unmanageable, and there's so many things that pull us
Yeah.
out of scope, right? Whether you're ADHD or not. And so like just having that, like, oh, look at all the stuff I got done, or look at all the stuff I did. And some of it could be productive and some of it could be unproductive. It doesn't really matter. The point is to see that we're always doing something. And
Mhm.
then to go like, oh, so then later, if we look at it or think about it, go, oh, you know what, I said I was going to go to the gym for half an hour, or I was gonna go running or whatever. Okay, now that's gonna be like my priority on my to-do list tomorrow.
Mhm.
And really making sure that the self-care is the greater priority, rather than like I have to do this and
Yeah.
this this and this and this.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's my one big takeaway. And then, just keeping in mind, hardly anybody knows this, but this is my message. There's so many wonderful things about each and every human being. And one of the most wonderful and curious and mysterious things about us is that every single human mind is different. And whether you're neurodivergent or neurotypical or neurocurious, just sharing the reality of your lived experience with someone, doesn't have to be in this format,
Yeah.
and just really appreciating the people who are in your circle of care for the whole people that they are. And none of us are the same. None of us know what we're doing. And isn't that great to be together? So I'm just so glad to be here with you today, Kate. And I'm so excited that you're going to go see some birds
Yeah.
and make some more knitting patterns, and just, navigating the whole like school work life of being adulting. And some of it can
Yeah.
be fun and some of it can be frustrating, and isn't that great? So
Yeah.
really, really glad to celebrate Neurodiversity Celebration Week with you. And who knows who's going to see this and hear this and share this. And so
Mhm.
we shall find out. And I'll keep
Yes.
posted as I get comments from people. But thank you so, so much, Kate. And I wish you all the best. And I can't wait to hear more about what you're learning and your recommendations. And yeah, just so glad to connect with you across the miles and through this
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's been so lovely chatting with you. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.